Good evening. Today is September 30th and the kickoff to the 2024 edition of Spooktober with Edgar Allan Poe. I am your host, Cassidy Carson. Tonight I will be telling you a little bit about Mr. Poe, his life, his work, and his influence on myself. Edgar Allan Poe was born January 19, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts, to David and Eliza Poe, a couple of actors. Edgar was the second of three children, with an older brother, Henry, born in 1807, and a younger sister, Rosalie, born in 1810. In 1810, Mr. Poe's father, David, also left the family, and his mother, Eliza, passed away in 1811. At that point, the children were separated, and Edgar was raised by John and Frances Allen of Richmond, Virginia, with whom he lived until his late teens. Poe's literary career began with the publication of Tamerlane and Other Poems in 1827. Tamerlane was initially published as the works of a Bostonian and not under the name Edgar Allan Poe. Only 50 copies of this first publication were printed. Over the course of Poe's short life, he died October 7th, 1849, under mysterious circumstances at the age of 40. After having written quite a variety of works over the course of his adult life, spanning the genres of horror, adventure, detective, and science fiction. Poe became a household name in 1845, very late in his life, for The Raven. As for his influence on myself, I grew up in the late 60s and early 1970s when Saturday morning cartoons were a weekly staple for children, followed closely by classic movies shown on my local television station in the afternoon. Included in these movies were a series of Roger Corman films based on Poe stories that starred the great Vincent Price. These 7 films and others had a great effect on me as a child. Some of them were humorous, some of them were terrifying. So I became a fan of not only Edgar Allan Poe, but also of Vincent Price and of classic horror films. I am not a horror writer by nature, but I am fascinated by the supernatural and the paranormal, and some of my own works will have that influence on them. And that leads back to the 7 Roger Corman films based on Edgar Allan Poe works that were shown on my local station during my childhood. These included House of Usher, which was filmed in 1960, The Pit and the Pendulum from 1961, Tales of Terror from 1962, The Haunted Palace from 1962, The Raven in 1963, The Tomb of Ligeia from 1964, and Mask of the Red Death, also in 1964. By the time I'd seen these movies, they were no longer being shown in theaters, but they were shown on afternoon television, where children such as myself, and probably some adults as well, were able to enjoy them and learn more about Edgar Allan Poe. Some of my favorite Edgar Allan Poe works include The Raven, The Cask of Amontillado, and The Telltale Heart, which is my absolute favorite of his works. As I mentioned, Mr. Poe lived a short life, but he did have quite an influence on literature in a variety of genres. If you have not yet read anything of Edgar Allan Poe's, I invite you to join me throughout the course of October to hear some of his lesser-known poems and short stories. Hopefully, in this way, we will not only enjoy the spooky season, but we'll be able to learn more about a master of his craft, and I hope to influence another generation to check out some of the works and films that I enjoyed myself as a child. So here we go. On this September 30th, 2024, I hope you'll join me throughout the month of October for Spooktober with Edgar Allan Poe.